How am I supposed to choose a college if I can't go up to see them? Does choosing one college over another change the chance of me actually getting a place? How much does college decision even matter? Choosing between the 45 Oxford colleges and halls can feel very daunting, especially as they can all seem very similar to each other and you're not even sure what you should be looking out and what you should discard when choosing a college. I've made 2 applications for Oxford, and having to go through the whole college decision twice, I feel like I'm really equipped to give some good advice, what to look out for, what not to look out for, all of the things we talked about right at the start and more. And we'll start with a really interesting one. Does your college choice impact your chance of getting a place? Oxford are particularly vague about this, but actually you definitely do have a different chance of getting in depending on the college you apply for your course. So let's actually look at this to prove this. Here we can see some TSA results which I found online from a Freedom of Information requests. The first page of the Freedom of Information request has all these different numbers, but all I've really taken is the number of offers and the number of applications. And of course, if we do the sum of offers over applications or applicants, we can basically work out a percentage of acceptances. Now, if we actually rank these colleges based on their acceptance, this is for PPE where the average is 12%. That's what the overarching document says for this year, it's a 12% acceptance. We can see, depending on the college you apply to, you can have roughly a 6% chance of getting in, that's at Balliol, or at St Hugh's, you can have almost a 20% chance of getting in. Because you're not actually applying to the university, you're applying to a college, you are competing against the other people who have applied to your college. Because once you apply, you're basically in your own mini application pool, competing for the number of places in the college against everyone else who specifies that college or who made an open application and Oxford chose that college for them. That is quite a significant difference. And so it would make sense for people to choose the colleges that may be easier to get into, because why not? However, there is a catch. It doesn't mean it's a good reason to choose a college based on this. First of all, bit of an obvious one, but if you're good enough, you'll probably get a place anywhere. Because of the pooling system and they move people around, if you think you're good enough for a place, you should back yourself and apply to the college you really want to go to, not another college because you think you'll have a slightly easier percentage chance. After all, you'll be there for 3 or 4 or 6 years, and so you want to go to a college that really resonates with you, not just one because it will help you get in before you even arrive, and then you regret that decision for the rest of your time. You can't swap colleges. Once you're there, you're at that college. Number 2, the percentage chance does change year on year. Yes, the ones at the bottom, the ones that are harder to get into, are likely to always be the same. Balliol is a very famous college, especially for PPE, so it makes sense they will often be at the bottom, one of the harder ones to get into. But if we look at St Hugh's, for example, where they took 6 acceptances this year, or the year we're looking at here for 2019, so it looks like they had roughly 31 applicants. It's very easy for the amount of applicants, when you're only dealing with roughly 30, to be skewed year on year. If suddenly 35 applicants or 40 applicants or even 45 applicants apply to the college, which really isn't a great difference, it's basically a difference of about a dozen people over the course of the whole country choosing one specific college over another each year, your chances dramatically change. In fact, if lots of people saw this document and then put St Hugh's as their choice because they thought it was easy, the next year would probably go really far down because people are choosing it, therefore making it harder. So there was definitely a cyclical effect that you can't really predict, and so it's not a good reason to choose a college, I would say. But again, we have to be clear. If you're getting in anywhere, you're a really solid applicant. So it's not the case that suddenly you go to one place and you have a really easy ride. You still have to hit that same benchmark. So I really am not necessarily sure that it's a good idea to choose a college based on this alone. Now let's talk about location, which I think is actually something that's often really overstated. People love to pick a college because it's close to the centre. I think when people look at the map of Oxford and see so many colleges clustered together, they think that the fringe ones must be super far away. First of all, Oxford isn't that big that the fringe colleges are so far away from the centre. Very easy, either walking or with a bike. Oxford's very flat, so both of those options are very doable, both directions. Second of all, not even it being the case that it's not just equal to live either in the centre or in one of the further away colleges, some people really do prefer living further away. People who go to, for example, Lady Margaret Hall, I hear talk about how they have a really nice work-life balance. They feel they can be at home in their college, they come into the centre, to the libraries, to do their lectures, whatever, and then when they go back, they can feel that physical disconnect where they can go back into home life a bit more. If I were a Brasenose and I went to do a whole day's worth of essays in the Radcliffe Camera, which is just outside, and then I walked 30 seconds back and I was already back in my college, which was my home. You know, I can understand why people think that might be a bit weird and they like to have that physical disconnect. I really do think that the fringe colleges are often disregarded straight away just because they're too far away, and that should be something that you definitely don't do. At least consider them, because if you see something really nice, it might be worth applying there. But I think people often just, okay, those 5 I'm not even going to consider, because I do understand it. People have got to get rid of some colleges somehow, so they just pick location as the first thing they can physically really compare, and I don't think that's a great place to start. So yeah, for those ones, that includes Lady Margaret Hall, St Hugh's, St Hilda's, St Catherine's, a lot of the Saints, but don't just disregard them off the bat. Let's talk about other academic factors in choosing a college. If, for example, you're doing German as a modern language, I think it's very reasonable to look at which colleges in the modern languages department have the most German tutors and professors. Of course, all colleges will have some modern language tutors in general, but if there's one college that you find is particularly German heavy if you're doing German, that might be quite nice, because you get to interact with tutors that really know your specific language. People also talk about how many other undergraduates there are for their subject. Again, not in terms of trying to game the system of having better or worse odds, but just some people like to be the only one doing their course, because then they don't feel like they're competing against anyone in their college, they can just be friends with everyone. And some people like the opposite, which is having loads of people in their college that are doing their course. They can all lament together, they can all, enjoy it together, they can just go through the process as a bit of a group. It wasn't something big for me, but I actually found out that there's quite a few classicists at Trinity, about 7 or 8, which is definitely one of the larger ones, and I'm quite looking forward to that. Some other people in my college that are doing my subject, but again, apparently not for everyone, which is fair enough. The next thing people sometimes choose colleges on is based on looks and size. So for example, some people might want a really small college that they feel is really intimate. They know everyone in their year, maybe the years above and below as well. They know all the porters know their name, they know all the tutors, stuff like that. So that appeals to some people. Alternatively, some people want maybe a different college which is really big and grandiose. Of course, you won't necessarily know everyone in your year, and some people prefer that. The feeling that it's actually bigger than you and there's always something going on, loads of people to talk to. I think this is a really good reason to choose a college. If you're sure which one you want, I think that's definitely a really good reason to pick it. Of course, there's somewhat of a balancing act, because the bigger colleges are likely to be closer to the centre and likely to be the older ones. So maybe if you wanted a small college but you still wanted one that's quite old and classic Oxford, there's a bit of a balancing act to be had. But then maybe one like Lincoln's one for you. So there definitely are lots of different combinations and permutations for these sorts of things. Similarly, you might want to choose colleges based on their greenery or their general aesthetic. My college, Trinity, has the highest square metre of grass to student ratio, which is quite a cool thing. Basically means it's very big and very green for the size of the college. That's definitely one of the reasons I picked it this year. And some other colleges that are like this. It's Magdalen, that has a nice deer park, and Worcester also has amazing views and has a lake, 26 acres or something crazy like that. Slightly further out, but often considered the most beautiful Oxford college, some other Oxford colleges also have amazing aesthetics that make them really popular to apply to, but kind of for other reasons. For example, Brasenose is just next to the Radcliffe Camera, one of the most iconic centrepieces of Oxford, and within the college you can actually see the camera, one of the few colleges that you can do that. So it has amazing views and people really like to apply there. This is actually where I applied the first time for this exact reason, but then when I applied for the second time, I actually realised that although that was beautiful, for me personally it actually wasn't a great reason to choose the college, because once you're in the college it doesn't actually affect it that much, and I much preferred something like Trinity this year that actually had more space inside, even if it didn't have amazing views looking outwards. Similar to this is their stereotypes. So for example, people might want to apply to Oriel or not apply to Oriel because it's nicknamed Toriel, that is to say Tory, they're being very right wing. It's difficult to know what to say to this one because some of the college stereotypes are fair and some aren't, and it's difficult to know. I think overall, you shouldn't choose a college based on reputation because they're likely to be false or at least played up, and when you go there, you'll probably realise most people and most places are really reasonable. But of course, if some people don't want to apply for these sorts of reasons, that makes perfect sense. Similarly, it's just the college reputation in general. So for example, some colleges are seen as very academic, some are seen as those classic, really old ones that lots of prime ministers have gone to, and some people like to choose based off this. Some of those really classic Oxford colleges, the ones that are really archaic, where all the prime ministers have gone to, very prestigious are the ones like Balliol and Christchurch. The Norrington table is a table that ranks all the Oxford colleges based on the amount of firsts they get each year, basically trying to show where the cleverest Oxford colleges are. Some colleges that are considered very clever and always doing really well on the Norrington table are colleges like New College or Merton College. But again, I think this is a slightly stupid reason to choose a college, because it's not about who went there in the past or how good your year group is in general. You want to know where the best place for you is, so I wouldn't take too much regard of this at all. Finally, let's talk about all things finance, another very fair reason to choose a college. This might be the case of looking at how many bursaries and scholarships that there are available, but there are also more niche things to think about in all this regard of finances. For example, how the food works and how the accommodation works. All the colleges are mostly catered, which means you're expected most of the time to eat in the dining hall. But some colleges charge you per meal that you eat in the dining hall, and some charge you a flat fee for the whole term. If you're expecting to eat most of your meals in the dining hall, then it's no problem to find a college that does that, charges you per term. But if for whatever reason you want to cook quite a lot for yourself, or you just might want to not always eat in the college, it might make sense to choose a college that allows you to pay per meal in your dining hall. Because if you pay a flat fee and then only use the college 5 times in a term, that's a bit of a shame really. Of course, related to this, check the kitchen facilities. Each college will have some, but some will naturally be better than others. For Trinity, for example, I know you pay per meal at the college, but the college kitchen facilities aren't so great. Although they are building some new ones ready for next year, I think. So it works out quite well. The kitchen facilities aren't great, but you pay per meal in the college, so it's not too bad. Similarly, accommodation. There are a variety of ways that colleges do accommodation, and it's worth checking in advance. For example, some do a tier system where you have different tiers of room and you pay a different fee per tier. You get to choose when you've been offered a place which type of accommodation you would like, if you would like to spend more or if you would like to spend less. And that works for some people at both ends of the spectrum because they know that they won't have to pay so much if they don't want to or can't, and at the same time, if they want all the amenities, they can pay for that. Other colleges, everyone pays the same rate no matter what room it is, and it's a random ballot that then reverses each year. So for example, I come top of the ballot, I get first choice, I can have the nicest room in first year, but then in second year I'm last on the ballot, so I probably have one of the worst rooms. Just personal preference and also situational preference, but again, something to probably consider. Most colleges offer accommodation for all your years of your course, but that's not always the case. So if that's something important to you and you want to have guaranteed college accommodation for all the years of your course, that's something to check. Separately to if they offer you accommodation for all the years of your course, you should check where that accommodation is. For example, in Trinity, you're offered accommodation for all years, in my case 4 years for my classics course, but only 2 of them are on site. What that means is, for the 3rd and 4th year, it's still Trinity-owned accommodation, but it's not on Trinity College main site. They send you out to an annex, which is basically sort of like a secondary site that's still owned by the college. You still just have to deal with them, no external landlords or anything like that, but I will not be on that main site for 3rd and 4th year. Some people prefer that because they can feel more independent, have that more of a normal university experience where you're kind of living out, with all the benefits, of course, not having to deal with external landlords, and you maybe still have it slightly subsidised by your college. Other people want to live in college for all of the years in their course, in their specific main site, which is also okay and something to probably check. I think if you consider all these things, that's an absolutely brilliant place to start for choosing a college. But at the same time, don't get too overwhelmed. At some point, you just have to choose a college and stick with it, because who knows what it's really going to be like, especially this year where maybe you can't go up. So you've just got to take a bit of a leap of faith, and also just think whichever college you end up, if you are lucky enough to get a place, you'll probably really enjoy it. Plenty of people get moved around and get given a different college to the one they applied to, and I don't know a single person who doesn't say, that's the best thing that could ever have happened. I feel so at home at this specific college. I'm so glad I went here, not the one I originally applied to. And to some extent, that's the same with me in Trinity. I think, had I got in first time at Brasenose, I would much rather go to Trinity right now. So there we go. I think that's everything I can think of. If there are any questions, more than happy to answer them. But apart from that, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.